everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online School. We're here in the Developmental series talking about our posture and our postural management. So postural management is kind of a mouthful, but it's essentially how we're handling our body's position as we go through specific range of motions. That range of motion, of course, being the paddle stroke. First, let's just talk about posture. When we're looking at the human skeleton, its ability to produce energy is at a maximum in an upright way. We are designed to operate through space in an upright way. Our skeleton's transfer of energy through the joint is dependent on being upright. So what allows us to be upright? Posture is something that can be infinitely complex and very hard to tackle. We're going to try and break it down into a few simple cues that you can address and make yourself sit more upright in the canoe. What allows the body to be in an upright position is keeping the muscles attached to the spine in a contracted way. Looking at bad posture, that would be where my shoulder blades come off my spine, my abdomen disengages, and I slump onto the back part of my hip, and I would be sitting like this with very poor posture. Using some simple cues, I can squeeze my abdomen, sit on the front part of my sit bones, and squeeze my shoulder blades together, and now I have adopted a much more upright posture. We want to keep this upright position to allow the force production from rotating and by leaning forward and sitting up to be at their highest. That force production is lost when these shoulder blades come off, the abdomen disengages, and I sit posterior. You can see that this is a less effective transfer of energy by going forward and back and side to side. So we'll start from the bottom up. Sitting anterior on the sit bones is what we're looking for. A posterior hip tilt is when we lean back like so, and an anterior tilt is where we sit on the front of our hips. In the canoe stroke, a lot of what we're doing is leaning forward and going forward, and so we want to be present on the front part of our hips to allow us the best angles and leverages. This also allows the spine to be stacked right on top of the hips. If I'm sitting posterior, my hips are in front of me and my spine is not supported under my body. And so my lower back has to bend to curve my shoulders to find that support. By sitting anterior, we give ourselves the foundation here to sit in a more upright way. The next thing we want to do is squeeze our abdomen and have this midsection contracted. If the midsection is loose, when we begin rotating like we talked about in the foundational series, you may find a disconnect between your shoulders and hips moving. By squeezing the abdomen, we can find that the hips and shoulders are going to move in unison, transferring the energy from the legs to the shoulders. If our legs are moving, our hips are not moving, the energy here gets locked into place, and now we just have to move at the thoracic spine, which is a very delicate part of the body because the spinal cord is not designed to be turning in such a way under load. Keeping this midsection engaged allows us to pivot and rotate, and this gives us the foundation to elaborate on with our rotation. This also allows us, when we lean forward towards the water, this allows the body to remain upright. If this abdomen disengages, boom, my body curls over to the top. This robs us of our effective weight transfer to the top hand. If our abdomen curls, our body weight is now going in this direction, trying to stabilize the hips, and now we can't get as much pressure on the top hand. Only by leaning forward with an engaged abdomen, having an upright spine, can we find more top hand pressure. Finally, we want to think about bringing the shoulder blades onto the spine. This is going to complete the entire kinetic chain transfer by allowing all the muscles from the bottom of the spine towards the top of the spine being engaged. This is another part that is hard to do. As we're taking paddle strokes forward, we're going to want to reach forward like so, and it is easy for these shoulder blades to come off the spine. This is ultimately going to curl the spine, and that energy transfer is going to get lost in that curve. By keeping the shoulder blades on the spine and leaning forward, an upright, straight spine, that power transfer is absolute. So we'll go through those cues again. If I sit posterior, abdomen disengage, shoulder blades off the spine, poor posture, poor energy transfer. And you can see as I'm lining up here to take a stroke, I'm trying to go forward, but my spine and my hips are all going in this direction. Weight going this way means weight that is not on the top of the paddle this way. Fixing that would be sitting anterior, squeezing the abdomen, pulling shoulder blades together, and now we're in good position to take a paddle stroke. This goes right into postural management. So we take all this time to think about being in a good postural alignment, having a straight spine, all the muscles are engaged on the spine to effectively transfer energy. Now, as we go through a range of motion, it is up to us to maintain and manage that posture. If I'm in good posture here and I extend my arms, my shoulder blades come off and I reach towards the water and my rib cage goes towards my knee and I break posture, it is all for naught. We must maintain all this posture that we're spending time putting together, and that way it's there for us as we're completing these strokes. Postural management is identifying when our posture breaks throughout the movement. Identifying this breakage is very difficult, but these points where we lose position is where energy is lost throughout the spine or the other joints. So it is imperative that we are able to have good posture and identify that we are maintaining good posture throughout our movement. Understanding maintaining posture in the seated position is also important. If you're trying to mirror postural management of athletes that are kneeling or standing or doing other motions, then you may be going apples to oranges with your understanding of what you're trying to achieve. Throughout the canoe stroke, our movement is a constant weight transfer forward and back. Just like I talked about, if our posture breaks, our weight is going in one direction and we're unable to get our body weight on the top of the stroke as effectively. The first part of postural management that we'll talk about is leaning forward. So we're rotating the body. This knee is engaged as I lean forward. We talk about this in the foundational series. This quadricep is supporting the body as it leans forward, keeping the shoulder blades together, squeezing the abdomen. I cannot physically lean any more forward from this position here. If I were to lean forward here, the first thing that would happen is either I'm sitting posterior and then I lean down, right? This is breaking position. The other way that I could do this is by disengaging at the abdomen and folding over the top like this. So this would be like a dragon boat stroke where all of these muscles are now extended and loose and I've lost my postural management in this position. The last thing I can do to lean forward here would be my shoulder blades coming off the spine like so. So I'm still engaging this leg, this abdomen is still engaged, but now my shoulders are grossly out of position because my top hand is extended like my bottom hand. Keeping good rotation looks like this, having the top shoulder back, meaning that I'm in a position like so. The only way this top shoulder goes forward is if it comes off the spine and extends. Now I've lost my posture. Identifying these quirks as poor postural management is the difference between an okay paddler and being a prolific paddler. Leaning forward is not the end goal of paddling. Leaning forward with perfect posture and weight transfer, that is the end goal. My weight transfer is effectively forward. I have almost no weight on my hips. All of my weight is loaded on this right leg in front of me. My body is in ideal position, managing the blade with the hands. Now the stroke can occur with the highest level of efficiency possible. Maintaining all of this postural alignment as we're completing stroke. The blade goes into the water as we're sitting up. We want to keep the shoulder blades on the spine. We want to keep the abdomen engaged, and we're sitting up. The weight transfer back to the seat as you're completing the stroke will keep the hips anterior. So if you're completing the strokes like this and going forward, right, this is excessive motion that is not necessary to be successful in the paddle stroke. Keep the hips under you, stay anterior on the sit bones as you're completing the stroke. At the end position, you're still sitting anterior. The spine is stacked right on the pelvis. Keeping the shoulder blades engaged, keeping the abdomen engaged, and staying nice and upright at the end of the stroke as well as the front of the stroke. Identifying that you're leaning forward without curling is very tough. You can use a mirror, you can send us video at the K2N online school, and we can give you all of the information you need to make sure that you have good posture and that you're effectively utilizing it going forward. One more time, if I sit posterior, right, this will allow me to lean forward and get lower to the water, and you can see all this postural breakage. If I am disengaged at the abdomen, right, then I'm going to break over this way, or I'm going to turn and break over the top, right? Poor posture in this position as well. And then the top shoulder extending off the spine is another way to lose our posture. If we are maintaining good posture at the front end of the stroke, the percentage chance that it stays with us to the end of the stroke is very high. That's why we are specifically talking about that aspect. Once the blade is in the water, if you're holding all of it at the hardest part of the stroke, it is easier to hold it as the stroke gets closer to you and the stroke becomes more accommodating to your leverages. We're going to elaborate on this postural management as we talk about the top arm, the bottom arm, the hips, and the leg drive, as well as when we go through the setup, the catch, the power, the exit, and the recovery. In the developmental series, we're having some more ideas about directional forces and leverages, and they all compound on having good posture and great postural management. If your posture goes out the window, we could talk about the catch, power, and exit all day, and it would mean nothing. Your effective weight transfer to the paddle is totally dependent on how you're sitting and how you're moving and managing that posture. The next video is going to be on the stroke overview, going over in a little bit more detail in the developmental series what we're looking to achieve with the stroke as we're progressing from the foundational series onward. Great, I hope that's been informative. If you do need a postural review, send us the video through the K2N Online School and we'll get that back to you as soon as possible. Great, we'll see you on the next video.